Let this little grub sink. We might end up going with a little minnow. We might go with a little fish fry, a gulp fish fry. We could go with any number of things. Oh, I had one. We could go with any number of things on this little tiny jig head, and that's kind of why I tied it on. We'll see what the fish tell us, of course. Oh, buddy, there's a crappie right here. Okay, grabbed it by the tail. Got him. There we go. That didn't take us long for the crappies. We learned that one from Charlie. Charlie Bunting, the old crappie champion, dabbing crappies. We've done whole shows about dabbing crappies, and I have a feeling we're going to do some more of that today because that's my first drop. And that's a beautiful crappie. Look at that. They get a lot bigger than that in here. I've already seen a bunch bigger than that, but that's literally my very first dab, and he got it. So beautiful. Look at that fish. Woo, jumping crappie even. So, little power grub right there, a little tiny Berkeley power grub on a tiny little jig head. Got it on 6-pound Nanofill. Key to getting those crappies to bite, and this is a huge key. And we talked about it a bunch on the show, but we still got a lot of emails about it. We dabbed the fish, and we learned it from Charlie Bunting on a show we filmed years prior. Charlie Bunting at that time went on to be the national crappie fishing champion. So he's very good at catching crappies. And he made me look silly catching crappies one day in the boat because he had one little nuance that I didn't understand in the boat because I hadn't fished for crappies my whole life like he had. Long story short, the little tiny crappie baits, and we caught them on a few different baits, little 1-inch power grubs and a few other things. Hold the bait right above the fish. You can see them. Hold it and don't move it. Just hold it right above them. And when the crappies come up and look, and they just look at it, and they look, and you're not moving it at all, and you're not, I mean, just absolutely dead stick it. Don't do anything with it. And then when they get real close to it, just barely drop the rod 1 inch. I mean, just boop, tiny little drop. Pow, they'd bite that thing right on cue every time. And once you get that trick figured out, it's such a good bite trigger, such a good reaction that you get out of the fish that it becomes addicting. Got him. Oh, that's money. That is so money. Look at the size of him. That is so money. That is so. Thank you, Charlie Bunting. Did you guys see that? That fish was looking. I did the little drop move I learned from Charlie, and look at this slab. Come here. Open your mouth. Look at that crappie, guys. That's a slab right there, guys. That's a big one. I mean, if you look at that. Here you go, buddy. Most people would fry you up, dude, so it's your lucky day that it was me that caught you. You could see the bait just hanging right above him, and he's looking. I just dropped the rod tip, just a little boop, let the bait drop that far suddenly, and it just disappeared. I didn't really see his mouth. I just saw that my little white grub disappeared, and I set the hook. That is money. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. I don't care if it's tricking a fish with a dry fly or whatever it is. You can trick them. That's what gets me going, and that's a good trick. Thank you, Mr. Bunting. A big concern that a lot of people have about ponds like that is fishing them out. And I think that's a fair concern. It's a 15-acre lake. Having said that, there's weed beds all the way across that lake, and that increases the carrying capacity tremendously. In other words, the amount of biomass that that lake can produce, the amount of bug life and subsequently minnows and everything else that goes with it comes up a whole bunch when you have a shallow enough lake that the sunlight will reach the bottom and the vegetation will grow all the way up. I also suspect that had we been there later in the year, that vegetation would have overwhelmed the fishery and maybe make it a little bit harder. But at the time of the year we were there in the late spring, it was not an issue. That weed bed is what makes that lake so fertile and also gives fish plenty of opportunity to be offshore, and that makes it a little harder for a pond to get fished out very hard. The other thing is crappies at the size that they were at there, I believe is probably a product of other people harvesting them. There was signs of other people having harvested fish while we were there, and I believe that there's probably been some significant harvest there, and that's why the crappies have the size they do, because you end up with a lot of little tiny crappies in a pond like that where they reproduce very well. You end up with a lot of little tiny ones if there's not some harvest, and a little bit of harvest would go a long ways. Having said that, it's not a big enough place that I'm expecting you're gonna go catch a limit every time you go, but the beauty of it is if you drive 5 or 10 miles up and down I-80, you can pick another pond and do the same thing again. So
You know, the state of Nebraska puts the information out there. You can Google it, you can get the brochure from the state. The intel is out there on not just West Gothenburg, but all the other ponds on I-80 as well. And at some point in the future, Fishful Thinker Television will probably be back to visit.
I think a little gulp fish fry has potential. We're gonna start with this grub because I can cover the most water with it like that. But I think we might have to switch to the fish fry too when we get this time. Another beautiful crappie. Look at that, guys. This is gonna be fun, I have a feeling. Before this is all over with, this is gonna be fun. Come on up in here. Oh, that's my fourth cast and second crappie and third bite. And he looks just like the last one. And like I said, we've seen some a lot bigger than that, but that's a beautiful fish and we'll take him all day long. I'm gonna try to just hang this thing here. Got him. There we go. There's a nice crappie there. Look at this one. He was deep down underneath there. Come here, buddy. Come on up here. There you go. There's a pretty crappie. We'll take that. Little paper mouth. Little power grub strikes again. Beautiful fish. See you, buddy. And what that is, guys, this is a little Johnson grub right here. It's a little unscented Johnson grub. It's typically made to go for like little trout and things like that. I got it on a 64th ounce jig head, same 6'9" ultralight St. Croix panfish rod. I gotta quit throwing at those trees. Camera guy's gonna yell at me because we don't have time to show you 5,000 of these in one day. Ta-da, ta-da!
The big thing about the I-80 show is it's such a classic example of fishing for what's biting. And I think as anglers, myself included, we all get a bunch of ego and then we go fight the conditions. We fight whatever the lakes are giving us. We're going out and we're gonna catch walleyes today no matter what. Or this is a largemouth show no matter what. Being versatile and being open-minded and having tackle with you is important if you want to be able to be very flexible. And when we're traveling on even with the little boat, I'm traveling with everything from the big flipping sticks, stuff that I might use to catch pike or largemouth, all the middle-sized stuff that I'd be throwing for wipers and walleyes and all that, and panfish gear in case we run into something like a bluegill or crappie pond. So I don't put all of it in the boat necessarily, but in the hand launch crawdad, you're not ever gonna get very far from your truck. So by having it available to me, it allowed us to be able to do that. Had I only had bass tackle, we might have had a long day of filming there without catching a lot of really good quality bass. That's not to say they aren't in there, it's just to say that on that particular day, in those particular conditions, they weren't nearly as easy to catch as the crappies and the bluegills. And if you fish for what's biting, you're gonna have the most fun.
There it goes. Got him. Before this is all over with, this is gonna be fun. Come on up in here. This is a good little crappie hole and I have a good little crappie pattern figured out. You just see the line go, and just take off. Here he comes. Got him. That is good fun. Come here, buddy. So there's another one. Looks a lot like a lot of the others.